Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I am Marcella Marlowe. I'm the city manager for the city of San Marino. It is delightful to see so many people here. As I think most of you probably know, we do monthly town hall meetings on a variety of different topics, things that might be of interest to you. And so if there's a topic that you would like to hear us talk about, please don't hesitate to let us know so that we can do that for you. Tonight's topic is related to our general plan update, and we're delighted to see some well, not necessarily faces, but names joining us here this evening to hear the presentation. I see that we are joined by our mayor. Hello, Mayor Udy. Welcome to our town hall. Hello, sir. As many of you know, we are currently in the process of recruiting for a new community development director with the departure of Aldo Cervantes to a city just south of us that will remain nameless. And in the meantime, we have an interim director with us. That is Mr. Alex Hamilton, who we were delighted to have someone of his caliber join us for our interim period. If you are not familiar with Alex, he has had a long career in the public sector, culminating as city manager for the city of El Monte, where he retired, but he worked his way up in community development. And so this is his career and his passion, and we are delighted to have him with us. So as many of you probably know, we are about to embark on a general plan update. This was a priority for the city council in this last year's budget process. It'll be a multi-year process, and interim director Hamilton will be kicking it off for us and then transitioning it over to our new director once we hire that person. So we thought it might be useful to get just a little update on what that general plan update is, how it will go, and just a reminder, one more little advertisement, that we are looking for committee members. The general plan process does require a steering committee. And so Alex will talk a little bit about that and see if maybe it piques your interest and it's something that you want to apply for. And I'm sure Alex will be explaining how you can go about applying to be part of that body. So again, thank you all for being here. And without any further ado, I am delighted to turn it over to our interim community development director, Mr. Alex Hamilton. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Marcella. Just got a brief few slides on the general plan. Most of you are familiar with general plans. I'll cover some of that ground very briefly, just to give you basically a primer on general plans, what they are, what they aren't, what they're supposed to do, and I'll move forward with this. Okay, I had it working. There it is. Okay. So the general plan 2040, as most of you know, every city and county in the state of California is required to have an adopted general plan. Basically, the general plan guides the growth and development of the city. It's basically the city's constitution, for lack of a better term. State law does mandate that general plans address 7 mandatory topics, or what they call elements. I'll go over those briefly. As I said, it's a long-term planning document. It's got about a 20-year horizon. Our general plan was last done in a comprehensive manner in 2003. The 7 elements that the state does mandate, and I'll get into this, and there's some nuances associated with it, but just keep the 7 basic elements in mind. And they could be, there's a lot of crossover between these elements. There's a lot of interconnectedness, but at minimum, land use is one of the 7 required elements. And that basically just sets forth the type, intensity, and general distribution of land uses for a variety of uses in the city, including public uses, parks, private and public uses. Circulation, that also correlates with the land use element and identifies the general location and extent of existing and proposed major thoroughfares, transportation routes, terminals, and other local public utilities and facilities. Housing is the 3rd mandated element. It assesses the current and projected housing needs for all economic segments of the community. It also has policies for providing adequate housing, including action programs for that purpose. By state law, the housing element must be adopted or updated every 5 to 8 years, depending on the schedule that's set forth by State Department of Housing and Community Development. We're currently in the midst of that housing element update, having had the council okay the element that was presented to them last week. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for that. It's already been sent up to HCD, so we'll see what their comments are going to be. Also, conservation is another mandated element, addresses the conservation, development, and use of natural resources, including water, forests, soils, rivers, and mineral deposits. Open space is another mandated element, and it's a detailed plan and measure for the long-range preservation and conservation of open space lands, including open space for the present preservation of natural resources, managed production of resources, agriculture, outdoor recreation, and public health and safety. Noise is another element that's required, and identifies and appraises noise problems within the community and forms the basis for land use distribution determinations. The long and short of it is a noise element is a planning tool where you do contour mapping and you identify acceptable levels of noise depending on the type of land use. So it's a very, very useful element. All of them are useful, but this one's especially useful for us as it relates to land use planning and mitigations and things that go into a zoning document, which, as you know, does implement the general plan. Last but not least, safety. That establishes policies and programs to protect the community from all manner of risks associated with seismic, geological, flood, wildfire, as well as other concerns such as drought. I asterisk both housing and safety because both of those elements are in the process of being updated. Of course, the new 2040 general plan will have to update the information from the safety and housing element made for consistency purposes. There are optional elements at the city's discretion, some of which include may include historic preservation, healthy communities, environmental justice when it's not required by statute. It's not applicable here per se. Economic development is a common optional element you'll see in general plans. And last but not least, based on some city council feedback, it was the direction of council to pursue an optional design element. And that would be part of our general plan. I think that's personally, from a professional perspective and personally too, a design element is going to be critical for us as we look at some of these pieces of state legislation that are going to be hitting us in January of next year. So we want to be as prepared as possible with that. So it'll help that. It's further down the road, but it's a very important element. Also, climate action plan. I say plan or element. We still need to flesh that out with whoever is going to be joining the steering committee and the council members that are chairing that committee. It can be either a standalone element or integrated into other elements. As I said before, San Marino's last general plan was adopted in 2003 with a planning horizon year of 2020. Obviously, active and engaged citizen participation is the cornerstone to an effective and representative general plan. The city is seeking volunteers to serve on a steering committee to launch the 2040 general plan. The steering committee would consist of 2 council liaisons, our Mayor Udi and council member Shepard Romy. Again, I repeated that about active and engaged citizen participation. No need to restate that, it's a given. It is envisioned that the steering committee could consist of anywhere from 7 to 15 members. That's something that we'll work with the council liaisons on as we go forward with this. In my experience, anything more than 15 as a number gets a little bit unwieldy for a group, and this is a very important working group. The committee would help shape the general plan, including making recommendations to the city council regarding the elements, public outreach, as well as assisting staff. We'll have to procure the services of a planning professional firm to put the general plan together. So that's where the committee could be very valuable to staff as a resource in moving forward on that. So lastly, the general plan update, there is a flyer there on the right. It's what we've used to broadcast and seek interest from a wide range of community members and stakeholders. It's important that we get this participation. Having been in a committee or commission, having served, that's not a prerequisite. We really want to take a deep dive on this and get really good representation. There's a way that you can sign up for this. On the Planning Division website, there's a form, a Google form that you can fill out. And it's an application form. It's an interest application, or you can scan the QR code on the flyer, take a picture of it, and that'll take you to a link that'll allow you to apply as well. And of course, you can drop off an application. If you need a hard copy, reach out to me. I can make sure we can get you something. And contact the Planning Division should you have any further questions at 626-300-0710. The filing period for this steering committee membership does end on November 12th. So it's right around the corner, but we can be flexible if necessary. We've already had some really good interest on this, so I'm really, really encouraged by that. Lastly, as it relates to next steps, this is a rough draft outline. So looking ahead for this month and December, we anticipate completing the steering committee process. Early next year would launch a kickoff meeting of the steering committee. And that would be a launch, and then we would put together a schedule for the committee. Early spring of next year, an RFP has to be put together. Staff would do that, would work closely with the committee to obtain the services of a planning firm to kick off preparation of the general plan. Of course, City Council has to, it's a procurement process. City Council has to approve the award of the professional services agreement. It's hoped that we would launch the general plan update process early next year, early summer of 2022. Robust public outreach and community input throughout the general plan update, and that's where the steering committee is going to be valuable for us. And then preparation of the draft general plan and all the technical studies that go into it, including CEQA document of some sort, would start summer of 2022, run through summer of 2023, with the adoption of the new 2040 plan anticipated by late 2023. That concludes my presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions if you do have them.
All right, thank you, Interim Director Hamilton. We have a question that was kicked off by the mayor. So thank you very much for asking an informative question. And then I see John Dustin has his hand up too. So Mayor Udi's question for you to share with the group is, how binding will the general plan be on future council actions?
Thank you for that question, and that's a very, very good question. The answer is, it's, as you know, the general plan is a long-term planning document, but it takes the zoning ordinance to implement, so it is binding. It's a 20-year horizon document, and it has to be obviously be consistent with the zoning. So we're going to be looking at some zoning updates, some code amendments as part of this general plan update as well. So it's the document that's going to guide us, and the zoning will be the tool to carry it.
And Alex, on any issue, if the steering committee that puts the general plan together and the plan's adopted says go left, and 3 years from now the council says no, we want to go right, what happens?
That's a great question, and the flexibility is always there. The state law, requires that you have a general plan, but it doesn't mandate how often, other than for the housing element, doesn't mandate how often you can update that general plan. So the short answer is yes, it can be changed. If the direction of the community and the council changes, we can amend the general plan and whatever relevant.
I'm really asking, if we're going to ask people to put in some time to create what they think is in the best long-term interest of the community, how much teeth is there going to be in it to stay true to that course rather than allow the whims and wishes of future councils to twist all over the place?
I appreciate that question. I would say that the plan amendment process, it's not simple, but it's not overly burdensome, but it's still a public process that you'd have to go through. So if by chance something changes, there's public hearing, planning commission, city council, there's a lot of public participation involved. So I would say it's a real good investment that the committee is making in the future of this community. And I don't really see it changing that much. Even if the direction of future councils changed, you'd still have to amend the plan.
And thank you. And there are ways, if the steering committee feels very strongly about it, that it takes 5 out of 5 votes or, 4 out of 5 to make something to change, or it's just going to be, simple majority going down the road?
I believe most zone changes, I'd have to research on general plan amendments. I think a zone change takes a 4/5 votes in many cities. I don't know specific if that's the case here. Maybe a similar structure for a general plan amendment, but I'd have to research that.
Yeah, because what I was really just thinking, if we're going to ask community members to invest time to come up with what they think is in the best long-term interest, how can we, put some assurity in it that direction continues? So thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
All right, John Dustin put his hand down, but I think when he put his hand down, he just put it to the keyboard and asked if instead, if we could post this slide deck. And I think there's no problem posting that slide deck. We'll work with our department to get that up tomorrow or Wednesday at the absolute latest, but it should be easily available. We got a question from Mr. Bode. You're welcome, Mr. Dustin. Let's see, do changes to state law like AB 9 or 10 or SB override the plan?
Good question, and no, it doesn't. We still have to create a framework in both the plan and the zoning to allow what state law is preempting, but it doesn't change the plan. It doesn't take anything away from our general plan and the importance of our general plan. The challenge for us, especially for SB 9, which is a little off topic, but great question, is we're rushing to put in some meaningful standards that really are comply with state law, but to protect the community, and we're actively engaged in doing that. So the good news is going forward with this general plan, we can also build in some additional protections if we feel that they're warranted.
All right, thank you. Other questions, feel free to speak. You don't need to type in the chat box, but of course you're welcome to if you would like. All right, we have another question. Could you please explain more what the optional design element is about?
That would be an attempt to come up with some design standards, objective design standards, which is another one of those state law items that's going to be hitting us soon. So the design element would be very it would be illustrative of what the community and what the council expects with certain architectural styles. So that would protect the community, and it would also give the community and people looking to reinvest some certainty in what to expect, certainty in the process, knowing what to look for, knowing what's important to the council and the community. So it's, in my opinion, while it's an optional element, it's a very, very important element, especially for a community like this.
Great questions. What else? What else can we answer for you? I say we. What else can Alex answer for you is really what I mean to say there.
I love questions.
I know, this is your moment. You have a captive community development director audience. It doesn't happen all the time.
No, it doesn't. And people that are knowledgeable, so that's even better.
There we are.
Oh,
John
good.
Dustin. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dr. Marla. So I'm just curious, are there opportunities, let's say if someone has a particular affinity for one of the elements in the plan, but not necessarily wanting to jump into the entire plan? Are there opportunities for input there, or are you looking really for people to take care of the whole enchilada?
Great question, and thank you for that question.
Can I jump in on that one too?
Sure, sorry, Marcia.
No problem at all. One of the things that we're looking for are people who can think big picture about the city as a whole. So, John, of course, you have a very particular area of expertise that we rely on a regular basis, and we are very grateful for you. But I also want to say that if you don't have an area of expertise in any of these arenas, but you still are passionately invested in the future of San Marino, which really means most residents, we want to hear from you. We're looking for people who can think generally in terms of big picture vision about where San Marino is going to be in 20 years in a variety of different issues. So Please don't think that you need to be a subject matter expert. We're really looking for people who can think broadly and big picture and are future oriented. That, of course, does not answer John's very specific question, but I did just want to put that plug out there that please don't let experience be a bar. We're definitely looking for good thinkers. So sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, that's perfectly said. And I agree. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. If your strength is in one aspect of the document over something else, that's fine. I've found in my years in public service that the best ideas come from the community when you reach out to them and ask them questions. And you'd be surprised, there are a lot of really good ideas out there. So that's what this process is about. And it's not limited to just expertise in one or more elements. You could dabble in all of them or one of them, it doesn't matter.
And if I can book it and jump in one more time, I recognize that this is a lengthy process. We are asking for a significant investment of time. This is a multi-year process. This is multi-subject matter. And so I know that for people who have lives, this might be a very difficult endeavor. And while I think we would want to try to be flexible with people who want to participate in some way, I guess I do just want to say we are looking for people who are going to take a holistic view of the city and are able to participate on all of this. Because if we have changing committee membership, it's going to take even longer for the process to complete. So I am not trying to rain on the illustrious Mr. Dustin's parade, but we want to get you in, and then we want to keep you. And we want to get you to weigh in on all sorts of things. Yes, Mayor Udi, you want to weigh in as well?
I was just thinking about the same thing. There are some, how do you think the meetings are going to be facilitated? Because there are some where you move right along and you get to the end, and others where it bounces all over the place. What are your thoughts on how to facilitate this, and who's going to do that?
Mayor, that's a great question. And what I envision is, as I said in the presentation, we've got to go through a procurement process to bring a planning consultant on board, one that specializes in general plans. So once that consultant is on board, it doesn't mean our work is over. It just means that part of that consultant's contract will be for outreach, and they will have programmed a number of outreach meetings into the contract. So they can handle a lot of that, but it's up to us to launch it and get them on board and then work collaboratively with them. And these consultants have really good outreach teams as sub-consultants, and they know how to moderate and host meetings and keep things moving in the same direction. And it's about building consensus and documenting along the way and making people feel like their voice is being heard. So it's a challenge, but it's doable.
That's encouraging. Do you think in terms of the expectations for the volunteers, we'll be able to put an expectation or cap on the number of hours per day, week, month, or year on this, so they get comfortable that it's not going to be a sentence, it's going to be a contribution?
I think there's a way to manage that, absolutely.
I also think that the kind of implicit message here is, if your schedule is such that you can't participate on the committee, but you have a special area of expertise that you'd like to share, there will be numerous outreach meetings where we'll be looking for that input. So, if, for example, Mr. Dustin feels like he really gives us enough of his life as it is already, and he doesn't want to give us a lot more, he certainly could come to those outreach meetings and share his expertise with us that way without committing to the whole enchilada, as they say. All right, other questions? Any final questions for Alex before we wrap up here? All right, then let me just say thank you to everybody. Thank you so much, Director Hamilton. We appreciate the presentation. As mentioned earlier, we'll go ahead and get that up on the website for you in the next day or so that you can peruse it. If you're interested in being on the committee, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and get your application in, and we look forward to putting a good group together. Thank you so much to Mayor Udi, who is one of the liaisons, as Director Hamilton said, on this project. We appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you to everybody. And if you are just getting your appetite wet for all things city related, then I have a treat for you. In about 35 minutes, our Public Safety Commission will be getting started, and there's a link for that available on our website, and you can come back and join us for all all things related to public safety and share your thoughts on that and hear some very important discussion with some of our key community members. So thank you again for being here. We much appreciate it, and we will look forward to seeing you next month for our town hall. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.